What's up, everybody? Coach Ben podcast here with Jim from Jiu-Jitsu Magazine. This is the week of July 7th. What's up, Jim?
Man, so we're heading into the summer, and with summer we have big sporting events. Of course, Fight Island kicks off this upcoming weekend, but which brings me to, with all the sports going on, gambling. You've mentioned this in the past. You talked about it a little bit with Seth, but you're also you've been in this neighborhood a long time. You study the lines. Hell, you even create some of the lines. Let's get some of your thoughts and talk about the idea of online betting for grappling events or betting, period, whether it's online or you go to Vegas, place a bet. But the idea of betting on grappling events. What's your take on that, Coach?
This is a big subject that I have been involved in for a while. Not specifically to grappling, but sports betting. I was always a sports bettor on the UFC since I think like 2012. So it's been a long time. I was never very serious about it, but recent years I have become a little more serious about sports betting. So yes, I think that the future of grappling is sports betting, and the reason is because if you look at every major spectator sport, right, they all have betting lines. The UFC betting lines are out for major UFC events in Vegas, in online betting sites. We're talking months in advance sometimes. So it's something. Sports betting is something that adds intrigue. It brings more eyeballs. It brings more casual fans. It develops the fighters' brands. It develops the brand of the organizations. It's going to grow the sport as a whole. And also, I think the main reason that sports betting or gambling on sports is good for the sport is because you become invested in the event more, right? Like, I don't even care about soccer, for example. I don't know much about it. But, there was a period of time when I was sports betting on soccer because there was no other sports. And I was invested, man. I knew everything, because you have money on the line. So
It made you care. It made you care about the players, the results, the scores, and so on and so forth.
Yeah, and I'm going to be perfectly honest about what this is. It is gambling, right? So you have to be very transparent when you're bringing in something like this to a sport, right? And I tend to tell people this. 95% of people are going to be casual fans and casual bettors, meaning that they're just, they're going to throw $20 on an offshore betting site
just to see what happens.
Just to have fun, and there's like 5% of people that take this thing seriously, right? So how do I know that? Well, we're going to be as transparent as we can on this show, Jim. 5% of people actually withdraw money from online betting sites. So what does that tell you?
That's a lot of money, a lot of transactions.
Most people are losing.
Oh, well,
Most people are losing.
Oh, yeah.
And
right. So you're saying 5% are winners.
5% of people are withdrawing. So that means that probably less than 5% are winners. Mm-hmm. Anyway, it's a fun thing that's going to bring money into the sport. It's going to bring eyeballs, especially at a time like this when we have this COVID thing looking like it's going to hit a third wave. We need some kind of way to get money into the economy of the sport that we enjoy, right? So most gyms, academies, a lot of people, they're not able to train, right? You can't really train. But professionals and these people that run these events like Seth from Fight to Win, they've committed to making these events every week. Every Friday we're going to get a Fight to Win for the next month, right? Submission Underground is happening this weekend as well, and they're gonna have 2 shows a month from what I heard. So there's Third Coast Grappling, there's ADCC coming up. There's so many events where there are opportunities to get bets in on fighters, and right now what I'm doing is I'm working with the betting sites to put up these lines, to put up these odds, and for the most part right now, sports betting it's muddy in the United States, right? So sports betting is legal in specific states. It's actually legal across the United States, but they put it in the hands of specific states. So a state like California, sports betting is not legal right now. So if you live in California, you have to use offshore betting sites. Sites like Bet Online, Five Dimes, BetDSI, MyBookie, things like that. They accept U.S. players. In the future, I do believe that when sports betting is legalized across all states, this is going to be a huge thing. DraftKings, you've heard of DraftKings?
Sure, yeah.
Right? They do those daily fantasy things, which everybody can do right now that it is legal. What I've heard is they lose money on those because they are setting up the platform for sports betting. They've been waiting since probably early 2010 to get to this point. And when this thing blows up in the U.S., what I'm trying to do is I don't want grappling to be seen as something that's a side thing, right? I want grappling to be neck and neck with MMA. I want the lines for professional grapplers to be the betting lines for professional grappling events to be neck and neck with UFC events. And this will also infuse more money into the sport for the athletes. People want to be professionals. They should encourage anything that brings money in. So that's kind of like a rant on why I think sports betting is important. Just look at any sport. That's I think is my biggest point.
Now,
even the Olympics.
Yeah. Okay. You just answered my question. I was going to ask. Yeah. Do they have lines on Olympics?
100%.
So something which brings up this detail. That's something that's been lost amongst all the years of if jiu-jitsu will ever become an Olympic sport. Well, man, this is an unconventional way of actually kind of brute forcing your way into the world of the Olympics to make a case for grappling. It is viable. There are people that are invested in not only watching as a fans, but people love betting on this.
Yeah, there's so much opportunity and money and benefit to the grappling community, I feel like. Obviously, there are also drawbacks. We'll talk about those later. But if you look at any major sports leagues and sports betting, online, in person, any Vegas, Pennsylvania, Atlantic City, wherever, right? You can literally bet on any outcome imaginable, right? So if you ever seen like how football game, like NFL football games are, you could bet on like who's going to get the first down, like Tyreek Hill, how many receptions is he going to have? There's a line for that. There's an odds for that. Another one, are the Chiefs going to win the coin toss? Like crazy stuff.
The proposition bets.
Yeah, prop bets. Mm-hmm. That's how far sports betting is in the major sports, right? In grappling right now, we're lucky to just have the fight to win odds up. So, for example, last event, Gary Tonin fought Casino on Fight to Win, and we had those lines up on Bet Online and Five Dimes and MyBookie, a couple other sites. Usually what happens is when the major offshore sites pick up your lines, the other sites will copy. And so that's an easy way to expand the coverage, right? So now think about this. You might have a person who has no idea what grappling is. Well, they know what it is, but they didn't know it was a professional sport.
Yeah, they still call it UFC.
Yeah,
they're doing UFC
they're just
and
checking
karate
out
uniforms.
UFC lines. Like, oh, there's Aldo's fighting Jan, and Usman's fighting Masvidal, and then they're like, "Ooh, what's this? Oh, grappling. Gary Tonin. I've heard that name. He's in one. He fights in one. I bet on him before. He's in this grappling event. He's a big favorite, but I think he's not a big enough favorite. Let me check. Let me research this, and boom! Now you've just got. What did you just get there? You got a new fan. You got a person who is probably going to go and get a subscription to a Flow Grappling because they want to see the match. They're invested. They just are probably going to put more money into the betting site because they want to bet. They're going to tell their friends. They're going to tell their friends, oh, hey, I'm betting on this grappling thing. They're going to mention on Twitter. A lot of professional sports bettors and non-professional Twitter mentions a huge thing. Oh, Gary Tonan's minus 260. Casino's plus 150. I just put 2 units on Gary Tonan. These are things. It's just another layer. It's a complex thing, and this is just another layer that I think is going to make sport jiu-jitsu, sport grappling, ADCC, Fight to Win, all these events just kind of take off. And I honestly want to see the sport go in that direction. I think, especially at this time with COVID, IBJJF, these tournaments, we're just, that might be the end. So we have to start pivoting at some point, and I think this is one pivot that if I could do something for the community, this is something that I could, kind of spearhead a little bit, and I have been. So yeah, we talked about major sports. They have sports betting, and not only regular bets, they have every single funky bet you can imagine. Can you imagine the day when, Buchecha comes out to fight whoever, Kainen, right? And you can bet on
who's going to sit guard, who's going to pull guard.
Exactly. You can bet on, hey, is Kainen going to get – well, it's going to have to start with some simple props, right? Like, first it's going to be, who's favored to win. Is it going to be a win by submission? Is it going to be a win by decision? Is it going to be a how many submission attempts is he going to – I mean, these are all stats that eventually could be tracked and could be managed and could be bet on. These are all things that there's a big future. I think it's big. So I didn't want to just talk about that. I also wanted to address this issue with just some knowledge and what to do if you how does it work, right? If you want to get involved, what do you do? Well, so first of all, know that if you live in a state where sports betting is legal and you have local sports books, it's probably best to shop around, I guess is what I'm saying, is because local sports books generally have, unless you're in a major place like Vegas or something, they have taxes and additional fees that kind of get baked into the odds. So a lot of times you're just not getting the best odds. Most people I know, at least most people that are in California, we don't have access to a local sports book, right? It's not legal here, so we have to use online offshore betting sites, which accept American players, U.S. players. So Bet Online is one of them. Bet DSI, MyBookie. You don't have to look hard. I mean, I just listed off the main ones. Five Dimes is another one, and you would start an account on these sites, right? It is kind of complicated to get money in there, but just follow the directions. I suggest you use Bitcoins if you have never messed with Bitcoins. Learn. You can also use your credit card and stuff, but I tend to tell people just stick to Bitcoins. So that's how you do it. That's how you get started. And then once you get your account up and you deposit, you can do whatever you want. I would suggest, since we're trying to boost up grappling, if you're a sports bettor right now and you would like to help the community, start betting on grappling when you see it, if you have an account. If you don't have an account and you make an account and you put a bet on grappling, you are helping the sport, because what you're doing is you're telling the betting sites, hey, this sport is popular. We're getting new accounts signed up that want to bet on this sport of grappling. What does that tell them? Hey, we better offer more bets. We better offer more props. We better reach out to Ben, me, who has been setting some of these lines and working with the organization, and tell him to get these lines to us earlier so more people can place bets, right? These are all things that are good for the sport, and we've had talks about this, Jim. I'm not doing this for like money or anything. It's not, I see a long play, and I think that if this thing takes off, jiu-jitsu as a whole takes off.
Yeah, you have a broader vision on what this can do to the whole art of jiu-jitsu.
The value of a black
not just
belt
the sport,
up. Everything.
The
value of a competitor. Gordon Ryan right now is maybe the only one making tremendous amounts of money, right? We could potentially have 10 people like him in the sport.
And if you don't know, just follow his Instagram. He'll tell you.
No, he'll tell you, yeah. He's got the bank deposits.
He does. And a new house. Congratulations on the house.
So yeah, that's how you get started, right? You just make an account at an offshore site, and then you can get involved. You can also simply share, retweet, the article that that I put out on Jim's site, jujitsumag.com, just share it. If you guys share it, who knows? Somebody might be like, "Ooh, I have an account on that site. I'm gonna make a bet." And then it just generates buzz, right? We could eventually in the future have a grappling event every night. You can have bets every night, grappling events every night. This is something that I know that the UFC has been looking to do. They're getting close, right? They used to have shows, the UFC shows once a month, right? Then it was like 2 times a month. Now it's every weekend, and their next step is probably twice a week, and their next step after that could be 5 days a week. So I'm just taking what UFC has kind of already paved the way for, and I want grappling to be neck and neck with the UFC. Obviously, I have benefits there, right? I'm a black belt. I own an academy. I know about betting, so when people, I set some of the lines.
And jiu-jitsu.
Yeah, I know about jiu-jitsu. So I set some of the lines. So I don't bet my own lines ever, but, I do after a certain amount of time. I let a couple days pass. The point is I want money to come in, and then, the pot gets bigger. You can bet a bigger limit at that point. All right. So, yeah, that's how it works, right? Right now in California, we got to stick with the offshore. Have you ever done any of this, Jim? Have you ever bet on fights, MMA?
Yes.
Yeah?
Yes.
Tell me your experience.
Not online.
Not online. Vegas?
Normally, yeah, I'll make a trip to Vegas
Okay.
or something like that. I'm trying to think of online. I did some football betting back in the day, but not a big gambler though.
Right.
Either
Okay.
way.
So I think it's important that I don't think everybody that listens to this understands sports betting, how it works. So let's do a real quick tutorial, right?
Yeah.
So,
And by the way, people, what Ben's about to break down, you could actually practice these principles on UFC fights. They've begun putting who the favorite is and what the numbers are and everything. I'm assuming that's what you're about to explain. How?
Oh yeah. I mean, I'm just going to explain how betting lines work and
Okay.
odds and stuff. So
Here we go.
it's very simple. So, I mean, right now you could bet on UFC fights, right? I'm working right now to get the Fight to Win card this Friday on some of the betting sites. It's a process. There's gatekeepers. There's all kinds of shit. So I'm doing my best. For the UFC, you could bet right now. Like you could bet on Aldo right now. So here's how it works. Once you get an account open on a betting site online, or if you live in person, there are props, but let's just ignore the props for now. There's two fighters, right? There's 2 people fighting each other, right? A match between 2 people. So one person generally will be a favorite, and one person will be an underdog. Now they might be even, but it's kind of rare. So anybody that has a plus next to their name, it means that they are a underdog. So they are plus money, right? So it starts at even money plus 100.
$100, right?
Even money. So you bet $100, you're going to get a return of $100, right? So if that's the case, then the implied odds are 50%, right? Because it's just, it's a 50-50, right? You might win, you might not win. Now, anybody with a negative, with a minus, right? That means that person's the favorite most of the time. There are times where 2 fighters are like both minus 110 or something like that, right? And these implied odds will never add up to 100%. They'll always be different. So one person's implied odds is always going to be different. It's not going to be the reciprocal of the other person's implied odds. Otherwise, the betting site can't make money. They have to make a margin. It's called VIG or juice. But just get back to the point. If I bet $100 and the person I'm betting on is the favorite and they're minus 120, right? So they're a small favorite. I'm not going to get my 100. I'm going to get my 100 back if they win, but I'm not going to get another additional 100, because it's not a 50-50, right? I'm going to get a little less than $100 back, right? So we can, I don't know the exact amount, but if you just go to any odds calculator, I could do it if I had a physical calculator too. You can figure it out, right? So at odds of 120, 1.83 is the decimal. So you're getting, so it's like a 55% implied probability that you're going to win, right? So when you put down $100, you're going to get like 80 something, 90 something. I don't know the exact number, right? But you're not going to get your full 100 as a win. So you get your 100, and then you get just a little under 100, right? So that's kind of how odds work, right? They're just, it's just the underdog. If you bet the underdog and win, since the underdog had a less than 50% chance of winning, you're going to get more money if you bet the underdog.
Yeah. So on that plus 105, is that the example you gave?
Plus 100, but
plus 105.
105 would be the dog.
The dog.
Yeah.
So if you bet $100, you get your $100 back plus $5 on top of that.
Yes,
or
sir.
if it's 110, you get $100 plus that $10.
Yeah.
And so you always hear this term thrown around when it comes to lines and things before the match, the contest. They're all, hey, this match is a pick 'em.
Lines are just all of the odds for the event. Is the lines.
Is the line. Is the whole idea of a number, the numbers.
Yeah.
That's the line.
It's a line.
So when someone says this is a pick 'em, what does that mean? This is a pick 'em match.
Sports betting wise, when you say pick 'em, it just means it's very close to 50%.
Right.
So I'm looking at one of the sites that if you do MMA betting, you use Best Fight Odds. There's another one called Odds Checker if you're from the UK. But Best Fight Odds. So an example of a pick 'em would be like
a minus 110 versus a minus 1.
Well, here's a true pick 'em. Here's two fights. Here's one fight that both the odds are minus 110. So there's minus 110 and minus 110. It has to be that way, right? Because if it was plus 110, then the betting site would lose just instantly, right? There has to be some juice in there. So that's how the betting sites make money. And so like minus 110 and then like plus 120, right, on the other side. Come back plus 120. That would be basically a pick 'em, but somewhat like a small underdog. The person plus 120 would be a small underdog, right? Now those numbers go up and down, right? So as the minus declines lower, that means that person is becoming a bigger and bigger favorite, right? And as the plus goes higher, that means that the person has become a bigger and bigger underdog, right? So an example of a match where there's an obvious favorite and obvious underdog is let me just look here. Okay, Joe Duffy versus Joel Alvarez. This is UFC Fight Night. Next one, Joe Duffy's minus 350, right? So you have to bet $350 just to get 100 back, right? Joel Alvarez is plus 260. So you bet 100, you get 260 plus your additional 100 back. So you get 360 back if you win on Joel Alvarez, right? What does that tell you about this fight? It tells you that, at least according to the odds makers, Joe Duffy is a very heavy favorite. Usually when you're going into like minus 300 territory, you're going into,
what they call a lock.
Not quite, but yes, it could be. I mean, it depends.
That's more of an opinion.
People interpret,
yeah,
a lock. Generally, you say something is a lock when there's absolutely no chance that they can lose. It's usually like minus 1,000. So like, somebody who has been a lock in recent fights is Valentina Shevchenko. She has been minus 1,000 in her last like 3 fights, I think, and she just destroys her. But she's a lock.
But there was always the dark cloud of Buster Douglas, Mike Tyson. That was a lock.
Anthony Joshua and Andy Ruiz. Joshua was considered a lock before that fight.
Right.
I mean, you can never really say a lock, but I saw people throw the word lock around.
Yeah, it's hyperbole. It's just vernacular.
Yeah.
Remember, this is gambling. There are no sure bets.
Here's an example of a lock, Jim, and I'm very scared of locks like this because in women's MMA, it's sometimes it's
still Wild West.
It could be, it could be, and that's no knock on women's MMA. It's just there's less women right now. When there's more women, the skill level is going to.
Oh, it's evolving. Every year it's gotten better.
Yeah, every year. Back in the day, I used to see, headlock throw is guaranteed, in every women's. Now I'm seeing great technique. Everything's getting better. I think that the women's MMA is going to have the biggest jump in the next few years. Right. So here's a lock. Amanda Hebos and Paige Van Zandt. Okay, Amanda Hebos is minus 900. This is the fight this Saturday. Paige Van Zandt is plus 600. Okay. So if you think that Paige Van Zandt is going to win, you should put a little money. You should chuck a little money on that because you're going to get 6 times a return. $100 is going to get you 600 back, plus your 100. So these are the here's a tip, right? These are the type of matches where you cannot bet the favorite here. I don't care if you think Amanda Hebos, there's no way she can lose, right? Because let me just calculate this right here. Minus 900, I think, is like in the 90 percentile. Do you think that she has a 90% chance of beating Paige Van Zandt? I would say you can't go that high. It's exactly 90. So,
when it comes to lines like that and your quote unquote locks, those are dangerous.
So here's why, Jim. Mm-hmm. When you make a bet on a minus 900, think about that. You are basically getting the odds that you're betting, right? So you're assuming that Amanda Hebos is going to win 90% of the time. 9 out of 10 times she will win. Okay. If you make that bet 10 times and Paige Van Zandt even wins twice, you're a long-term loser. So that's why you can't bet these. You have to stay with reasonable odds. This is very juiced odds. Juiced is just, it's pumped.
The deck's stacked.
Yeah,
one way or the
other. People will bet on her. They're in parlays. Parlay, by the way, is just multiple bets stacked into one. It's just a way to stack your odds. So I wanted to use this example because the way you sports bet is you look for a margin of value over the bookies, right? So what I mean is, if you think Amanda Hebos has a 95% chance of winning, if you think that, then this is a good bet. But I don't think that. I think she has probably a 75% chance of winning. So in order for me to bet, me personally, this is different for everybody, in my opinion. In order for me to bet Amanda Hebos, she would need to be minus 300 because that's implied probability is 75%. So if she was minus 300, I would bet. I would probably bet 3 units, meaning a unit is just 1% of your bankroll. So if you have $10,000, right, 3 units would be $300. Right, so you'd bet 300 and you would win 100 if she wins. I think that's reasonable. If you somehow can get Amanda Hebos for minus 300 is impossible. You won't be able to get that. You should make that bet. And these are all things that I think transfer beautifully to grappling, right? When Gary Tonon's lines were initially set, Gary Tonon was a minus 260 against Cascino last week, right? So I tipped everybody to bet Gary Tonon straight up because the implied probability of minus 260 means that you're getting the odds that Gary would win 72% of the time, right? In my mind, I thought Gary Tonon was going to win 80% of the time. So I had a 8% margin on the bookies. If you keep playing this game where you have a margin, you're going to win in the long term. You're going to lose if let's say Gary Tonon was minus 700, and you're like, okay, I think he has 80% chance of winning, so I'm going to bet Gary Tonon at minus 700. Well, then you would lose money in the long term because you're paying for 87.5%, but you're betting your money on 80%. You think in your head that Gary has an 80% chance of winning, but you're betting at odds of 87% that he has winning. You will lose in the long run. And so the point is, that's just a quick, brief, thing on sports betting. I hope people could understand that. It's probably more of a rant. But
one thing before we close this thing out is outside of the skill level between the two competitors, what else influences the line? You mentioned something about unless a lot of people are betting on
many things, but mainly it's obviously the skill. Who do you think is going to win?
Sure. But the amount of money on one or the other competitor, does that affect the lines,
of course.
The change in the odds?
Yes.
How does it explain a little what I'm talking about here?
So betting sites want is they want both sides to have the same amount of money because then they will make money guaranteed.
Yeah, because then it is off of the pure skill of the.
No, just mathematics. It would because of juice. they would make money if like say $500 came in on one and 500 came in on the other.
Right.
There's no you don't balance that out, right? You can't. That's their ideal situation, right? What happens a lot is, betting sites make their money on juice, meaning they make their money because you are doing exactly what I just said in reverse. Is you think somebody's going to win, but you miscalculate the margin, and then you pay for all this juice. You pay for minus 700 when you should have only paid for minus 300. That's how people lose money, and betting too much, doing too many parlays. So sorry, your question, Jim, was how does it move the line? So as money comes in on each side, right? So let's say somebody is minus 120 and the other person's plus 110, right? If I were to put maximum bets, or even just continuously put money in on the minus 120, the favorite, that line is going to shift to lower and lower and lower. How much it shifts depends on how much money comes in.
So they'll adjust the lines to make it more enticing for you to bet on that underdog, because they want people, like if they make the odds so extreme, hey man, listen.
Yeah, it is a form of enticement, but it's also just a form of balancing their own kind of economy there. Mm-hmm. So yeah, that's how if you go to Best Fight Odds, you can see how this happens, right? You can look at Amanda Hebos is fighting Paige Van Zandt this weekend, so she started out as a minus 450, right? Mm-hmm. That was her opening line. Let me make sure. Yes, so she started out as a minus 450. Now she's minus 850, right? So how did that happen? Money came in.
Okay, so money came in on her side.
Paige, it was the opposite, right? Mm-hmm. Money did come in, but much more money came in on the underdog. You have to usually bet more on the underdog because you need to make up for the fact that you're not getting as much in return.
Right.
So for somebody
Imbalanced.
So for somebody that's a big underdog, you might only put half of a unit. But for a large favorite that is going to win, you might need to put 3 to 4 units. Sometimes I wouldn't go past 5 if you're trying to stay smart. But that's it. So all right. So we talked about how sports betting works. Is there anything else that we need to cover, Jim? Because I didn't really come into this with any like outline, but I just felt I could talk enough about it.
No, we're talking, man. We went over some of the we went over a little bit of the vernacular, the glossary of sports betting. We kind of a rough introduction. I'm proud to say that this is a realm that we're starting to look into more often, with you leading the way, and people could have a resource to actually learn and get their hooks in, and the whole idea and the concept of sports betting, well, more specifically in jiu-jitsu, in grappling, and shine a light on what you expressed on how it actually does help the community. This can help the community, especially in these times. It could be a piece of the effort of the rebuild.
Yeah.
Once us on the other side of this whole situation, and it has its role.
Yeah, I mean, we didn't get a chance to talk about this, and maybe we'll do it on another show, but it's not all, sunshine and rainbows.
You got that right.
There's definitely drawbacks, and I'm not going to dismiss them. There are things with corruption and things that can come along with sports betting, but for the most part, I've dealt with a lot of the betting sites. I know the people that are in the business. I know sports bettors. These are all just regular people, trying to make an honest living. The betting sites, for the most part, okay, I'm not gonna talk about like random isolated incidents or small betting sites that nobody knows about. For the most part, big betting sites, offshore ones, the ones I mentioned, Bet Online, etc. They're trying to keep you happy, right? They're not trying to screw you here, because they have a reputation. All it takes is a couple reviews, and next thing you know, their rating goes down. So they're trying to help build everything up too.
Try to take care of you.
Yeah. So there are other drawbacks, but that's not important right now. Right now, I think the important thing is we give this thing a shot and we move forward. For those of you guys listening, please share the article. So the Fight to Win article I just wrote on Jiu-Jitsu Mag should be front page. Create an account if you want to get into that stuff. Start small. Start $1. $1, $2, stuff like that, and then you can also just tune in to Fight to Win. Watch Fight to Win. Spread the news.
And man, if you have any questions and you want to add to some of the stuff that Ben's talking about, shoot an email, feedback@jujitsumag.com. Let us know your thoughts. Put sports betting in the subject line. You can get a hold of Coach Ben on his Instagram account. That's probably the best way, right?
Yeah, at Coach BZ on Instagram is
at Coach BZ.
I do have a YouTube that and a Patreon. So if you guys go to my Patreon, you can. So I put my bets on there. So either way, we will talk soon. And that's it. Anything else, Jim?
Nope, we're good to go.
Perfect.
Happy running into the summer. All right. Thanks, everyone.
Right.
Thanks, Coach.
Thank you.
See you
Thank
guys.
you, Jim.